We were late picking our kids up from school once. 15 minutes. The neighbors saw them sitting on the porch and took photos. That night, I got a message from Child Services. Anonymous concern regarding unattended minors. But it wasn't anonymous. The complaint mentioned details only the neighbor knew. When I asked her why, she said, "Just trying to prevent another headline." She smiled. Then said, "You should thank me for caring more than you do." We moved to Colony, just outside Albany, New York, about 2 years ago. I wanted quiet. A safer place for our 2 kids. We were tired of the city noise, the parking fights, the sirens. I'm 42, my wife Sarah's 39. We both work, me in IT for a state contractor, her as a dental assistant part-time. We thought this place was calm, safe, the kind of suburb where your neighbors wave and share zucchini from the garden. Most of them were fine. But one neighbor wasn't. Her name was Nancy McCready. She lived alone in the house to the left of us. Her husband died before we moved in, and she never had kids. That's what someone on the block told us. She didn't work, but her house was spotless, lawn perfect, and she always seemed to know what everyone else was doing. I don't think she missed a thing from that kitchen window of hers. She was one of those women who smile with their mouth but not their eyes. At first, it was just little comments. Harmless on the surface. "You left your trash bins out 2 days this week. I saw your son left his bike in the driveway again. Could be a tripping hazard." Stuff like that. Just irritating. Sarah always told me Nancy had a stick up her ass and that it'd turn into something bigger one day. I thought she was just being dramatic. I wish I had listened. It happened on a Friday. One of those days where nothing goes right. Sarah had to stay an extra hour at the clinic because a patient came in last minute. I got stuck behind a 3-car pileup on Route 5. My phone battery died at 4:17 p.m. I remember because that's the last time I saw the screen. The school bus normally drops the kids off in front of our house at 3:50. If a parent isn't there, they'll wait 5 minutes. If no one shows, they either take the kid back to school or drop them off anyway if the kid says it's safe and the driver knows the route. That day, the driver knew us. He dropped off both kids, Hannah, 9, and Lucas, 7, on our porch. Our neighborhood's quiet. No busy streets right out front. Our porch is gated. The kids have a key, but they sat out front to wait. We pulled in at 4:08. I remember because the clock on the dash was blinking from when the battery was changed that week. The kids were sitting there. Just waiting. Not scared. Not upset. Just annoyed. I jumped out of the car, hugged them, apologized 100 times. Sarah looked like she wanted to cry. They were fine. We figured that was the end of it. At 9:30 p.m. that night, I got an email. Subject line: Child Protective Services, initial notification of concern. I read it 3 times. An anonymous report had been filed that day. The message said someone claimed our kids were left unsupervised for over an hour and were visibly cold and unattended. It even mentioned the girl in the blue hoodie with white polka dots. That's what Hannah had been wearing. That detail shook me. Because only someone close enough to see from the porch would know that. And only someone who hated us would have done something so low. Sarah stared at the email and said, "It was Nancy. It had to be her." I didn't want to believe it. I really didn't. But deep down I knew. Next morning, I went out to get the mail. Nancy was out front too, pruning her bushes. She didn't look up. She didn't say hi. Then she said casually, without turning her head, "Just trying to prevent another headline." I froze. "What did you say?" She turned to me. Smiled. The fakest, most smug smile I've ever seen. "You should thank me for caring more than you do." I didn't respond. I couldn't. I just went back inside and sat in the kitchen, silent. CPS didn't find anything. The case was closed in a week. They saw the truth: 2 kids on their own porch for less than 20 minutes in a safe neighborhood. But that wasn't the end. Nancy had tried to get us in trouble. She'd started something she thought she'd win. And I decided that day, I wasn't going to forget this. I wasn't going to let it go. I was going to find a way to make sure she regretted ever thinking she was better than us. She thought she was some kind of guardian. A protector. What she really was. A hypocrite. A liar. A woman with her own skeletons. And I was about to find every last one. I didn't sleep much after that. Every time I looked at my kids, I saw how easily things could have gone bad. One call. One lie. One twisted version of the truth, and our whole life could have been torn apart. CPS said it was closed, but the visit alone was enough to make us feel like criminals in our own home. Sarah wanted to move. "She's watching us," she said one night. "I see her blinds shift every time we step outside." I told her no. We weren't running. Not from Nancy. Not from anyone. But I did start paying attention. I watched Nancy like she watched us. I started keeping a notebook. Times she came and went. People who visited. Odd things I noticed. It felt crazy at first, but then I started seeing patterns. She had a man come by every other Wednesday afternoon around 2:30. Always the same guy. Mid-60s. Drove a white pickup with no plates on the front. He never stayed more than an hour. He'd go in through the back gate. That caught my attention. Then I noticed something else. She had a small shed in the back corner of her yard. Half covered in ivy, old-looking, but locked with a new chain. Every so often, I'd see her carry something back there. Boxes. Bags. One time, what looked like an old computer monitor. The shed didn't sit right with me. So I talked to another neighbor. Older guy named Martin who's lived on this street for 35 years. He gave me a look when I asked about Nancy. "She used to work in the district office," he said. "Child welfare or some kind of county board. Got pushed out 10 years ago. Some big argument with a parent, I think. She doesn't talk about it." "Why'd she stop working?" He shrugged. "No idea. All I know is the school stopped letting her volunteer after that. That was enough for me. I made a plan. One Saturday, I walked by her house around the time that man usually showed up. I snapped a photo of his truck, got the full license plate this time. I did a reverse lookup online. He wasn't just some friend. He was Carl Denby. A contractor who'd lost his license for building code violations and safety issues. One case involved installing hidden rooms without proper permits. Another involved hoarding complaints from a woman who claimed he built her a storage space for her sentimental items. The guy was shady. So why was he meeting Nancy regularly? A week later, Sarah spotted Nancy in town, at the pharmacy, arguing loudly with the cashier. She didn't see Sarah watching, but she heard her say something strange. "Those meds are supposed to be under my program. You people screw it up every month." "Program?" I went home and dug deeper. I searched public records, county health programs, even FOI8 old board minutes from 10 years ago. Took me weeks. Then I found it. Nancy used to run a foster parent support group, a non-official one, never licensed. She claimed she helped troubled homes by monitoring families and reporting what she called near misses. She ran it off the books, got donations from churches and local businesses. Most of that money was undocumented. She shut it all down after she was sued in 2014. A family accused her of harassment. Of trying to have their kids taken away based on lies. Just like us. That wasn't the twist, though. The twist was what the report mentioned in the footnotes. Nancy had once taken in a teenage girl temporarily during a case involving neglect. The girl had gone missing for 3 days. When she returned, she refused to talk. The report said she feared retaliation. The county couldn't prove misconduct, but pulled Nancy from the volunteer list and banned her from any foster-related work. She'd been trying to play savior for years. and hurting people while she did. I now had proof of a pattern. I just needed the final piece. Something I could use to expose her without getting my hands dirty. And I had a feeling that old shed held more than just garden tools. The shed became my obsession. It was positioned in the corner of Nancy's backyard, hidden behind her rose bushes and a leaning wooden trellis. The lock was new. The hinges weren't rusted. She went in there too often for it to be some forgotten storage unit. But I couldn't just walk onto her property. I wasn't about to get arrested for trespassing. So I waited for an opening. It came 2 weeks later. Nancy left town for what she called a church retreat. I overheard her telling another neighbor about it. She made a big deal of announcing she'd be gone, from Friday morning to Sunday evening. I took Friday off work. Told Sarah I was handling it. She didn't ask what it was. She just kissed my cheek and said, "Be careful." That morning, as soon as Nancy's sedan pulled out of the driveway, I walked over. I wore gloves. I'd brought bolt cutters. The lock came off with 2 hard squeezes. Inside the shed, the air was stale and sharp with mildew. But it wasn't junky. No old bikes or cracked flower pots. There were filing cabinets. 5 of them. Labeled by year. Each drawer packed with folders. Names. Photos. School rosters. Printed out social media posts. Handwritten notes in tight cursive. Some folders had multiple rubber bands around them, stuffed with what looked like surveillance logs. She'd been watching people for years. Not just us. Other neighbors. Teachers. Bus drivers. One folder had my name on it. So did Sarah's. Even Hannah and Lucas had their own. I felt sick. There were notes like, "Lucas outside alone, 7:03 a.m., January 11th. No coat. 29 degrees. Hannah seen talking to older girl near stop sign. Unknown if parent aware." But the most disturbing part. The special interest drawer. I opened it and found photos of kids. Not neighborhood kids. Not recent. These were grainy, printed from old cameras. Black and white security footage taped to yellowing paper. Names I didn't recognize. One folder had Marisol G. written in Sharpie. It was nearly empty except for a single report. Said she didn't feel safe staying here anymore. Requested new placement. Didn't provide specifics. Case closed without further inquiry. The name matched the girl from the lawsuit back in 2014. The more I read, the worse it got. Nancy hadn't just reported families, she had tracked, followed, and documented them. Without cause. Some of the kids she reported ended up in foster care. Others had switched schools. One file had a parent's suicide note, printed from a news article. I knew then that she didn't care about protecting anyone. She wanted control. She lived off feeling powerful over families who couldn't fight back. I copied everything. I took photos of the most damning files, hers, mine, other families on the block. I wore a body cam, the same kind used for biking. Captured video of everything I touched. I even lifted a single folder, Marisol's, and sealed it in a freezer bag. I left everything else untouched, even replaced the lock with one of my own. She wouldn't know it had been opened. Then I started making calls. I contacted a local reporter who once did a piece on CPS failures in Albany County. I showed her what I found. I told her about Nancy. I gave her copies of the files, sanitized, no kids' names. She didn't need much convincing. Then I called Martin, the old neighbor. I showed him the photos. He looked stunned. "We all thought she was just nosy," he said. "But this is sick." I knew I was putting a target on my back. But I didn't care. Because then something happened that changed everything. 3 days later, a white pickup truck, the same one Carl Denby drove, was parked in front of my house. He was sitting behind the wheel. Just watching. I walked out the front door. He didn't move. He didn't wave. Just stared. And then he drove off. He knew. They both knew. Nancy had found out. And now the game wasn't just about revenge. It was about survival. The next few days were tense. Sarah noticed it first, the same white pickup, parked a few houses down, twice in 1 week. Different times. Always when I was home alone. Carl never got out. Just sat there. Watching. I called the reporter. Her name was Elise. She was sharp, no nonsense. She told me she'd already started digging into Nancy's history and found more. A pattern of complaints over the years. Most had gone nowhere. But there was a common thread. Every single case involved a vulnerable family. Single moms, immigrants, low-income parents. People who didn't have time or money to fight back. Nancy knew who she could scare, Elise said. She never went after anyone who could hit back. Until now. That night, we installed cameras, front yard, backyard, driveway. Sarah wanted to leave town for a few days, take the kids to her sister's place in Binghamton. I told her to go. She packed up and left the next morning. I stayed. I wasn't done. That same day, Elise called again. She was ready to go public. The article dropped 2 days later. Front page of the local Sunday section. Neighborhood watchdog or predator? The hidden harassment history of Colony's Nancy McCready. It had everything. Redacted files. Statements from 2 other families she had harassed. An interview with Marisol, now an adult, who confirmed Nancy had threatened her into silence when she was 15. Even Martin, the old neighbor, had gone on record. He called Nancy dangerous with a clipboard. The reaction was immediate. The community Facebook page exploded. Half the neighborhood was in shock. The other half admitted they always knew something was off about her. The school district issued a statement saying Nancy had been prohibited from campus contact since 2014. CPS said they were opening a new investigation into past complaints. But that wasn't the end. That same night, around 11:30 p.m., I heard the sound. Glass. Shattering. I ran downstairs. The front window, smashed. A rock on the living room floor, wrapped in a piece of paper. You think this is over? I called the police. They came, took photos, asked questions, but didn't arrest anyone. No proof it was her, the officer said. Could have been anyone. But I knew. The next morning, I woke up to the smell of smoke. Not from my house, from across the yard. Nancy's shed was on fire. Orange flames pouring through the roof. Black smoke curling into the sky. I stood on the back porch in my robe, just watching. Fire trucks showed up 5 minutes later. Nancy was already outside screaming, trying to run toward it. The police had to hold her back. The shed burned down to the frame. Everything inside, gone. I never touched it. Swear to God I didn't. I think Nancy did it herself. Maybe out of panic. Maybe to destroy the files she hadn't realized I already copied. Maybe she thought she could hide the truth in the flames. It didn't work. 3 days later, police showed up at her door with a warrant. Elise had forwarded the rest of the documents. They found duplicates in her basement, even more files, some dating back 20 years. Records she had no legal right to keep. Notes about kids, parents, school employees. She was arrested for unlawful surveillance and violating multiple privacy laws. They found her laptop, too. She'd been saving photos, videos, even audio recordings. Carl Denby disappeared. Never showed up again. We never heard from him. As for Nancy? She was charged with 7 counts of stalking and 3 counts of custodial interference. 2 of the families she harassed reopened old lawsuits. She was denied bail. No one came to her defense. Not even the old church group she used to host. But here's the part one didn't expect. 3 weeks after the arrest, a CPS agent knocked on my door again. Even with everything that happened, someone had filed another anonymous tip. said I had influenced a minor to give false testimony. I lost it. I went down to the CPS office myself, demanded to speak to a supervisor. Showed them the bodycam footage, Elisa's article, everything. The report was thrown out the next day. But the damage was done. Sarah didn't want to come back. She said she couldn't sleep in that house anymore. Too many eyes. Too much fear. I understood. We put the house up for sale 2 months later. Moved to a small town near Syracuse. I still think about what happened. About how close we came to losing everything over 15 minutes. Over one person's twisted need for power. Nancy thought she could hide behind concern. Behind fake smiles and phrases like, "Just doing my part." But in the end, she destroyed herself. I don't feel sorry for her. But I do feel changed. I never wanted revenge. I just wanted peace. But sometimes, to get peace, you have to burn the whole damn shed down. Even if you're not the one holding the match.